How are you all doing? So, Strength Chat episode 18, and today I'm going to be chatting about, is the functional movement screen a good predictor for injury? Before we get going, for those of you that don't know what the FMS is, or functional movement screen, it's a movement competency-based test which has been used in both the sporting and rehab environments. It basically tests the 7 foundation movements that everyone should be able to do, so a lunge, a squat, a hip hinge, that sort of stuff. The scoring system for this is anywhere between 0 and 3. So 0 means that you got pain in the movement, 1 means that you couldn't do the movement, 2 means that you can sort of do the movement, and 3 means that you did the movement perfectly. Okay. Most coaches have used this to predict whether their clients or athletes are at higher risk of injury. But does it actually predict that? Okay. In the past 2 or 3 years, there's been 2 literature reviews which have been published, which has basically questioned the validity of the FMS, of the functional movement screen. This is down to the scoring of the FMS. Okay, so a good score for your FMS is anywhere between 14 and 21. So if you fall under 14, you're at higher risk of injury, and if you are 14 or above, you're less likely to have an injury. Okay. Now, one study, it was conducted on some NFL players, American football players, predicted that players with a score lower than 14 had an 11.67 times more likely chance of injury than players with a score above 14. But what type of injury? It gave no other information apart from players who had a score below 14 had an 11.67 chance of injury. It didn't tell them whether they were more likely of a hamstring pull, of a back injury, or anything like that. That's the only information they were provided. As a coach, I know for me, I use the FMS. For me, that's nothing to go on. There's 11.67 times chance of what nobody knows. On reviewing this though, it can be said that the scoring system for the FMS is actually pretty spot on. Okay, when coaches are assessing you and doing the FMS, there isn't actually too much variation in the scoring. So the scoring system is bang on. Okay, however, like I was saying before, there's no other feedback to that. That's basically because there's too many variables when it comes to injuries. There's too much going on. So the FMS can't be a sole predictor of injury. Most injuries are caused due to an imbalance between the stress demands of the environment and the tolerance the person has for that environment. Okay, so basically that means that your body's being asked to do something that it can't do. This can be caused by a collision in playing sport, turning at high speed. It could be down to the training volume that you're doing into the gym, looking at your recovery, all sorts of things. So in terms of injuries, there's too much that goes on. You could have a score of 21, have the best movement that there is, but you go into the gym and your training volume is really, really high and you're not recovering as much, you're going to injure yourself. Your body isn't designed for that amount of stress in that environment. Okay, that makes sense? So just because of your score on the FMS, that's not a sole provider of that. And then it boils down to that injuries are always going to be there. People are always going to get injured. After saying that, the best strategy, I think, to implement the best intervention strategies to reduce injury rather than focusing on the scoring system. Okay, yes, the FMS may point you in the right direction, but it isn't the be all and end all. So from the FMS, I can usually tell if people have got tight quads, a weak core, tight hamstrings, all that sort of stuff, which are good signposts. They're good to say, right, okay, so this guy's coming in and this footballer's coming in and he's got really tight quads. Okay, so he might end up pulling his hamstrings and having an injury. I might have a powerlifter that comes in that has a weak core. So when I'm testing his trunk stability, he might have a little bit of a weak core. So it's like, right, okay, I need to work on his core strength so he doesn't injure his back or anything like that when he's lifting. All right. So in terms of if you get an FMS assessment on you, or you are a coach who is delivering an FMS, just use it as a signpost. Don't be like, right, okay, you've got a score less than 14, you can't do anything, you are going to get injured. That's not the case at all. Like I was saying before, injuries are due to the tolerance you have for that environment. So that could be the training volume, all that sort of stuff. Okay. So really, the whole answering the question that I said at the top, is the functional movement screen a good predictor of injury? Probably not. All right, it's just a signpost to let coaches know where you're going. So it lets me know what foam rolling I'm going to give you, what probably stretches I'm going to give you. Okay, there are too many variables when it comes to injuries. So any questions on this topic or anything like that, or if you have any questions about how you can manage training volume or anything like that, comment below and I'll try and get back to you as soon as I can. But thanks for listening, and I'll see you next week. Cheers.